This is problem number 5 on the practice problems for test number 2. This is actually the video only for 5A. If you want to see 5B, look at the description for this video to find a link to the other place. Solve each of the following problems by writing and solving an equation. A rectangular garden plot is 3 feet wider than it is long. If the area of the garden plot is 100 square feet, what are its dimensions? Round your answers to the nearest tenth of a foot. So we'll start here by drawing a picture. We've got a rectangle, so begin with that. And we know that rectangles have lengths and widths, so it seems natural to introduce an L and a W for length and width. But then we've got this nice relationship here. It says that the plot is 3 feet wider than it is long. So we're going to try to translate that into an equation. So it seems like one of these dimensions is 3 more than the other. So the two natural choices are the length is the width plus 3, or the width is the length plus 3. And unfortunately, only one of them is right. So here, again, the underlined sentence says that that this thing is 3 feet wider than it is long. So which one of the numbers, the width or the length, is the bigger one? It says it's 3 feet wider than it is long. So I think that means that the width is actually the bigger number. The width is 3 more than the length. So if we start to translate the words that are given into something like the width is 3 more than the length, then which of these two equations says that? Well, this says the length is 3 more than the width, which is not what we wanted. It's actually the other equation that's the right one. The width is 3 more than the length. So the bottom equation is the right one, and the top equation is wrong. So now that we've got our equation, maybe we'll go back and just kind of fill in, let W equal the width, and L equal the length. And those are both going to be in what dimensions here? Feet. And then we've got our equation. W is L plus 3. And then the other piece of this puzzle has to do with the area of the rectangle. So let's start with the formula for the area of any rectangle. It's length times width. And in this case, we know what the area is. We know the area is supposed to be 100. So instead of the A, I'm going to put 100 is equal to length times width. And so then the last step here, before we start really doing some equation solving, is to change one of these letters here, either the L or the W, into something with the other letter in it. And the place we're going to go is right here. It says that W is L plus 3. So instead of W, we're going to put L plus 3. So this equation becomes 100 equals L times, and then instead of W, L plus 3. Now I've made a mistake here, and that mistake is to not include parentheses. This W, the width, is one thing, whereas now the way I've written it has actually become two things. And unfortunately, we haven't put any grouping symbols here to really indicate that that is still one thing. It's still the width, the single thing that is the width. So it needs parentheses. Okay, and this equation is the best one we've got up on the board because it has only one variable in it, just the L. So now it becomes a solving equation kind of thing. So first I'll distribute. And then I'll recognize finally that this is a quadratic equation because the power on the L is 2. And oftentimes in solving quadratic equations, you get one side equal to 0. So let's subtract 100 from both sides. And if we're lucky, the quadratic equation factors. So you might pause the video here and try to factor it. And if it doesn't factor, that's okay. So don't get frustrated if it doesn't factor. And so whether or not you tried it, it turns out this quadratic doesn't factor. So it seems like our best bet is the quadratic formula. So let's write that here. See if you can write it down from memory while I write it up here. All right, so hopefully we agree about this formula. One little detail thing, we don't have x's in this equation, we have L. So this x actually for us becomes L. Okay, So now it's a matter of identifying what A, B, and C are. So let's pick them off from this equation. A and B and C. So A is the number in front of the L squared term. We didn't write it, but it's a 1. B is in front of the L. That's a 3. C is the constant term, the term sitting without any L's next to it. And that's not 100, but negative 100. Be careful that you grab that negative. And so then we're just going to plug all these things into our quadratic formula and then crunch some numbers, and I think we'll be done. So here's our quadratic formula. L equals negative b, negative 3, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 3 squared, minus 4 times a times c. 4 times 1 times negative 100. All divided by 2 times a, 2 times 1. So go ahead and pause the video here, see if you can clean this thing up. Before you touch the calculator, you're going to want to clean up what's inside the square root symbol, and then come back when you think you've got it. Okay, so I've got negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 409, all divided by 2. And then the question here said we're going to round this thing, so that means we're looking for a decimal of some kind. So let's see if we can find the decimal that is negative 3 plus minus square root of 409 over 2. So if we did negative 3 minus square root of 409, we would get a negative number, and the length is definitely a positive number. It's a distance. So we're going to ignore the negative and acknowledge that of the plus or minus, it's really the plus that we're interested in here. So we're going to type in negative 3 plus the square root of 409, all divided by 2. So you got to be really careful as you type this in. So let's try now. So for me, I hit 3, and then I think there's a plus minus. There it is. Negative 3 plus, and then for me again, let's see, I think I'm going to find the square root button here. Square root. And it looks like I'm typing this in wrong, so let's try again. 3 negative plus, and then on this calculator, I think I need to do 409 before I hit the square root button. There we go. So on your calculator, it might be a slightly different order. Maybe we'll show you on this one. Maybe this is the order you need to use. Negative 3 plus the square root of 409 equals. And I paused the video there because these two numbers are different. One of them says 17.2 and the other says 20.2. And I realize it's because on the calculator on the right, I needed to hit equals. I haven't hit equals yet. So what we're looking at, this 20-point business, is really just the square root of 409. But as soon as I hit equals, it'll add that negative 3 in. And now we have the same answer on both. And then regardless of which way you did it, the last step here is to divide by 2. See that 2 in green at the bottom. So we'll just hit divide by 2. And we get our answer there, or divide by 2, and we get the same answer over here. So 8.61 is our length. And I do want to point out that I was really careful to do the numerator of this big green quadratic formula calculation at the bottom separate. I typed in the whole numerator once, and then I typed in divide by 2. It's really easy to make a mistake and try to type the whole thing in one shot. Negative 3 plus the square root of 409, and then close the parentheses for the square root, and then divide by 2. We know the correct answer to this problem is 8.6, but we don't get that doing it this way. And it's because there's an order of operations thing happening. The calculator thinks that you are intending to divide by 2, not the whole thing up here, but actually just the thing that's touching the divide by 2. So it's only dividing this piece by 2, and it's not dividing this piece by 2. So that's why I went out of my way to do the top separate, and then only after I had that single numerator, that number right there, did I divide the answer by 2. So we should get 8.61. Let's see what the direction said again. It said round your answers to the nearest tenth of a foot. So this rounds to about 8.6. And then I'll say the other L is negative, so we didn't even bother calculating it. It's not the right answer. And then the last step for this one is to find the width. And the easiest place to go is the equation that says W equals. So we'll find it just up here, right there in purple. W equals L plus 3. Let's bring that right down here. So that means that W is equal to 8.6 plus 3. So W is 11.6. So the width is 11.6, the length is 8.6.